Expert, Phephelaphi Dube. She's in our Cape Town studio. Phephelaphi, always a pleasure speaking to you. Thanks again for being with us this evening.
Good evening.
Let's just get into some reports that we're seeing coming through. An organization called Transformation SA, and I think that this organization, quite well known for defending President Jacob Zuma, say that they're going to turn to the courts to try and stop the motion of no confidence going ahead. Can they do this? What chance do they have?
Well, I think they'll have an uphill battle in terms of trying to convince the court as to the legality of their actions, because we need to bear in mind that the motion of no confidence in terms of the Constitution is really the ultimate accountability tool. It's the ultimate accountability tool in that it's really the ultimate way in which we hold the president as the holder of the highest office in the land. It's really the ultimate way in which he's held accountable. And it's very much in line with constitutional foundational principles of an accountable, transparent, open and responsive government. So in that sense, they would have a very difficult time in trying to convince the courts that they've got a strong enough case. And of course, another thing that we need to consider is the doctrine of separation of powers, in the sense that in terms of the Constitution, it's quite clear that it's really only the members of the National Assembly who have a say in removing the president from his office. The courts play no role in this regard.
So what we're going to see going tomorrow is something that nobody can really stop at this stage. This is Parliament. It's going to happen. Parliament elects the president, and they have the right to pull him out of that position as well.
Absolutely. In its most crude sense, it's just the understanding that the president is voted into the office by the members of the National Assembly. So it stands to reason that it's those same members who can remove him from office. Of course, that comes with the proviso that if the president doesn't resign voluntarily, then that's the logical step, that it's up to the same people who put him in that office to remove him from that same office.
Let's talk about the options for the president right now, because we are expecting a statement coming from the president any time from now, whether he resigns, whether he decides to take this further. Does he have any rights right now? Because he keeps on saying, and he basically spent an entire interview speaking to the SABC saying that he still has not been given proper reasons as to why he's being recalled as the president. Constitutionally, does he have rights? Can he fight this?
Well, I think the president also would have an uphill battle in this regard, because we need to bear in mind the very nature of a motion of no confidence. A motion of no confidence is very different from an impeachment procedure, in that an impeachment procedure is fault-based, in that you have to find fault, you have to establish beyond reasonable doubt just what the president did wrong. Whereas with the motion of no confidence, it's really a matter of opinion. So there isn't that same requirement for members of the National Assembly to show just what exactly the president did wrong. So of course, if he's going to challenge the motion of no confidence on that basis, there really isn't enough reason, legally speaking. And of course, there have also been rumors about possibly a challenge regarding the manner in which the ANC has probably handled the recall, just from an employment law perspective. And I think that also wouldn't carry much weight, because we need to consider the fact that the president is in that office by virtue of enjoying the support of the majority party. And once the majority party withdraws the support from the president, then it stands to reason that he's no longer a legitimate president, that he can no longer hold that office. But of course, I think, we need to draw a line between the political process and the legal process. Perhaps politically speaking, the recall could have been handled much better. But from a legal perspective, there's perhaps very little room in which the president could maneuver.
Yeah. So having said that, let's look forward to if he refuses to go, let's just take it that way, and the motion of no confidence goes ahead tomorrow. Now, from what we're seeing on the parliamentary agenda is that the National Assembly, there'll be from 10 to 12:30 a special caucus meeting, and then at 2 o'clock until approximately 3:30 there's going to be that plenary where Mr. Julius Malema, the leader of the EFF, is expected to open up with that motion of no confidence in the president in terms of section 102.2 of the Constitution. What happens then? How does the process unfold?
Well, in terms of the rules of the National Assembly, so because the motion was tabled by the EFF, so it's basically up to the EFF to make both the opening as well as the closing arguments, and then the various political parties will thereafter follow, and they'll also be allocated certain amount of time. But of course, because it's the EFF's motion, the EFF will probably have the most amount of time, and they'll each stand up and they'll each motivate as to why they're either in support of the motion or why they're opposing the motion, and then thereafter the voting takes place. So as the Speaker of Parliament has already mentioned, the voting is going to take place by an open ballot, so we're not going to see the secret ballot as we saw last year. And then thereafter it's just a question of tallying the results, and then it's announced immediately. And of course, once the results are announced immediately, if the motion is passed, then it means, in terms of the Constitution is quite clear that the President, the Deputy President, any Deputy Ministers and all Cabinet Ministers must immediately resign from their offices.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's something that's important to note, is that it's not only the President that has to vacate his position, everybody goes, including the Deputy President, correct?
Yes, absolutely. The Deputy President is also removed from his position as the Deputy President.
Okay.
But also bear in mind that he's also a member of the National Assembly. So he's simply going to resign from the presidency, and he's going to go back to being an ordinary backbencher of the National Assembly. But of course, in terms of the Constitution, the next president is voted from amongst the members of the National Assembly. So in a sense, it does leave him free to contest the president's office.
Well, which the ANC have already told us in no uncertain terms that ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa will be put into that position of the President of South Africa, and he will be sworn in tomorrow. So what I'm gathering from this is a very swift process. I mean, once the votes are counted, they're in, and the motion of no confidence, if it is in favor of getting rid of the president and he has to go, then everything goes and he can be sworn in immediately, the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. In fact, the Constitution says that all of this needs to take place within 30 days. So basically, it means that the most time that the members of Parliament have is 30 days, but it doesn't stop them from beginning the process immediately. And we just also need to bear in mind that at the resignation of the President, after the motion has been passed, the Speaker of the National Assembly will be for those few hours or few days, or is it 24 hours, but she will be South Africa's acting President, and she too is going to assume all of the powers, functions and rights and responsibilities of the President's office.
Yeah. Phephelaphi, just finally, if the President does resign tonight, is it a case that automatically Cyril Ramaphosa becomes the President of South Africa immediately as that announcement is made? Does that position automatically stand?
Well, he would become the president, but obviously he needs to be sworn into that office first. But it's also important to note that the moment he's sworn into that office, he also assumes the powers, functions, rights and responsibilities of the president's office. But the National Assembly still needs to vote him into that office. So he can only be in the acting position for a period of 30 days, and then we have to revert back to the National Assembly in order for the National Assembly to confirm his presidency. So in that sense, it means that he stops being an acting president and he becomes the de facto president. But of course, he's only completing President Jacob Zuma's term. It means that he'll still be free to contest the next two general elections should the National Assembly so desire.
All right. I leave it at that. Phephelaphi Dube, thank you for your expert opinion on the constitutional law and just giving us an understanding of what is in store for us either way, whichever way this evening goes. At least you understand what is going to unfold in the next 24 hours.